All right, everyone. Well, I have 2 minutes after the clock, and in the interest of everyone's time, I'll be starting the meeting just momentarily. Appreciate you all being here, and we will commence. So, good afternoon, and welcome to the Virginia Employment Commission Unemployment Insurance webinar hosted by VACo. My name is Jeremy Bennett, VACo Director of Intergovernmental Affairs. The purpose of this webinar is an overview of unemployment programs and conditions in Virginia, resources available to help Virginians navigate the claims process, and potential long-term impacts to employers and counties. Since March 15th, more than 877,000 unemployment claims have been filed in Virginia as a result of the impacts of COVID-19 and other economic factors. As the nation struggles to recover from the unemployment rates that have not been seen since the Great Depression, the Virginia Employment Commission has provided VACo with an opportunity to share information and resources counties are encouraged to share with their citizens. Before we begin and get into the meat of the presentation, I'd like to introduce VACo Director of Communications, Gage Harder, to go over some meeting logistics. Gage?
Thank you, Jeremy. Happy to be here. It's a great webinar for our members. We are recording it because some members aren't able to be here today, so we will be sharing this with our members at a future date. Ask everyone to please mute their mics and phones. This prevents feedback and stuff. And if you need to speak, go ahead and unmute your mic at that time. If you have a question, please feel free to leave it in the chat. Jeremy, Katie, and I are monitoring it, and we'll try to get to your question if we can. If we don't get to it, we will follow up with you as best we can after this webinar and try to get your question answered. For those on the phone, if you have a question, you can email Katie Boyle. Her email is kboyle, B-O-Y-L-E, at VACo.org. Again, kboyle@VACo.org, and she'll pass along your question. Other than that, we're looking forward to a great webinar. At this time, I don't know if we have many on the line, but to take a photo, I don't see many on video to take a photo. So periodically, I will be snapping photos. So just be aware of that. Other than that, I'm passing it back to Jeremy. Thanks for the time, Jeremy.
Thanks very much, Gage. Really appreciate that. As Gage said, I'll just reiterate that our experience during these past few months with these virtual meetings is they go a lot smoother if you're able to mute your phone or your computer. So I'd strongly encourage you to do that to reduce any possible feedback. But going back to the presentation, we are joined today by Jason Padgett, Conrad Buckler of Virginia Employment Commission, and B. Gonzalez of Jason Padgett has been with VEC for close to a decade. He's worked with VEC in Richmond and was in charge of the Lynchburg office before returning to Richmond to help manage all issues related to the pandemic. He'll be giving an overview of the state and federal programs, as well as some of the challenges that VEC has faced and steps moving forward. He'll be joined by Mr. Conrad Buckler, VEC's senior economist and a Louisiana native. He's been working with VEC for over 2 years and comes to VEC from the Bureau of Economic Analysis in Washington, D.C. He'll be focusing his presentation today on the trust fund and tax forecast. Also joining is B. Gonzalez, partner at Capital Results, a public affairs firm in Richmond. She and her team are assisting in all communications and education efforts for VEC during the pandemic. Welcome to you all. And with that, B, I will turn things over to you and Jason to get started. Your screen should be shared, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. I'm going to just go ahead and hand it over to Jason and Conrad as we move through the slides, and we'll be here to answer any questions. Jason?
Okay, great. Thank you, B. So we'll get started. I guess it is still afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. So overview of unemployment benefits. Currently with the Federal CARES Act, we have gotten additional benefit programs. So we'll start off with the standard is still the state benefits, Virginia unemployment insurance. Benefits range from $60 to $378 per week, and it is from 12 to 26 weeks. So not everyone, receives the maximum. We talk about the maximum benefit amount a lot of 378. There are quite a few claimants customers that receive 150, 200, $300, and not for the full 26 weeks. And so that is based on wages that are reported quarterly, and they're in covered employment. The next one is the PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. So this is the UI type of benefit. This is we've really called it 1099 or self-employed people. It also covers a benefit for people that cannot qualify for state benefits but still have a COVID-related reason of not working. And so that started January 27th and goes through the end of the calendar year. And then we have FPUC. That is the additional $600 to all UI payments. That includes PUA and then the regular state benefits. That does end July 25th. In order to receive the additional $600, receive at least federal benefits. The reason why we say $1, during the pandemic, we've seen many people work part-time or furloughed schedules of maybe, or reduced schedules rather, of 2 or 3 days. And so they may report that income. And so if they report the income, that reduces their benefit amount. So if someone, makes $375 and their weekly benefit amount is $378, they really would get a benefit payment of $3, the difference, plus the $600. So that's why the law was written that way. And then lastly, we have the PEUC, which extends the length of unemployment insurance for up to 13 weeks. Applications will begin July 6th. The extension is available through December 26th. And so that is, that is for people that have exhausted all other UI benefits. And so we're thankful that's coming on board, here in the coming days. So before the pandemic versus today, kind of a snapshot. It really is hard to provide some context for this, but VEC unemployment claims 2019, and really 2019 being, with the economy doing so well as it was, 11,000 claims a month. Currently, during the pandemic, we received 300,000 claims a month. So it's really hard to compare a monthly total of 300,000 versus 11,000. And so it may be in the slide further on. I mean, we've compressed going on 4 months now, but 3 months. Overtime hours we've worked, usually in 2019, of course, it was less than 1,000. Currently, we're working over 8,000 hours a month. A little bit of a playback there. Maybe somebody can mute something. So VEC call center employees in 2019, we were at 82. So currently we are at 403 and still growing. We have contracted out call center staff for PUA and to do additional fact finding. Those folks are also coming on board here in July. So benefits claims paid, usually, under a normal year or last year, we would pay out $25 million per month. Since March 15th, we have paid out $5 billion in benefits. Administrative hearings, that is an administrative hearing, meaning you had a voluntary or you had a termination, things that require a fact finding or a decision from a hearing officer. Normally, that is 59,000 conducted in the entire year. So far, we have 80,000 that are currently pending. So that is the bulk of the waiting game are those hearings. So claims data for week ending June 20th. Nearly 900,000 claims. That's something to point out. I can. I'm not an economist, so I can just say something that's not really, the economists would describe. But to me, it's so mind-blowing because we're almost up. BLS reports, I think that the workforce, people in the labor market for the state of Virginia is around 4 million. So we only have 4 million people in our workforce. It may be a little bit more than that, maybe 4.2 million. And so we have had almost 1 in 4 people, almost 1 million initial claims. So, not all those people qualify. Not all those people continue to file each week for benefits. But that's just an absolutely staggering number. To think 1 in 4 people in your workforce is filing for unemployment. I'm not going to say 25% unemployment rate, but that is, it's really unbelievable. 25,000 initial claims filed last week. That is a decline of 1,800, 1,900, but 25,000 initial claims. What is a normal, claim week would be 2,000. So you go from 2,000 initial claims is normal, and you go up to 25,000 where we still are. Here's the number I was talking about, the continued claims. We have 375,000, so just under 400,000, and a decline of 11,000 from the prior week. So we'll see if that number continues to go down in the coming weeks as we reopen, as things hopefully continue to get better. 75% of the unemployment claims resulting in payment by VEC during the pandemic. 42%, the previous all-time high of unemployment benefits claiming and payment by the VEC. So, a lot of people are getting benefits. 91%, the percentage of voluntarily eligible people that are eligible, resulting in payment within 14 days. And then again, lastly, we have the 80,000 pending determinations to be made. Okay. Claims by region as of June 20th. So Alexandria, Arlington, of course, what you would expect, even though they, Northern Virginia has the largest part of our population, and then Hampton Roads and Virginia Beach, you can really, kind of look at the population number versus the claims as a percentage of labor force, and then how many initial claims for that area. So a reminder on this is that on every Thursday, when the agency releases the new unemployment numbers, there is an Excel spreadsheet that anyone can go in and find the data for your specific county. So you can find, what claims, directly for your city or county and your area, and keep a running track of that. I know a lot of people do request that. So you can see, thank you. No, that's fine. It's just a snapshot of numbers. 75% of claims paid, 25% have issues. Why? So monetary eligible. We do see a lot of claimants, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, where people have not earned $3,000 in 2 quarters of the base period. You have a lot of people that maybe were employed in the fall or the winter, and then they were laid off, and then they were not able to become reemployed and earn that $3,000 in the quarter. And so they were already disqualified. That is an issue, the 3,000. The other is separation qualification. Claimant voluntarily quit. Claimant took a leave of absence. Claimant was terminated for misconduct. So any separation from employment that's not due to a layoff or a lack of work, a determination from a hearing officer has to be made. And so of them, we have, I think it's probably out of the 80,000 hearings, I think we're looking at around 50,000 hearings that are just for voluntary quits, meaning people voluntarily quit. And even though we are under the pandemic and the health crisis, that does not, waive the agency's requirement to create a determination on those issues.
How do I get non-covered?
I'm going to, yep.
I see it.
So another issue is weekly certification. It's been a huge education hurdle.
You just stay working on it.
Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll just remind folks that if they can mute their microphones, that would be helpful in reducing feedback. But please continue, Jason, and
All right.
interruption.
So it's been a big education hurdle of people understanding that it's not just one initial claim you file and then everything is taken care of. For a weekly certification. In that weekly certification, you have to be able and available for work. You can't refuse suitable work. You can't refuse a job offer or fail to take a job because of a drug test. Those type of issues, we see, and they do cause an issue on the claim that has to be adjudicated or resolved. And that causes, some of the delays. Exhausted for the benefit year prior to the pandemic, or the claimant has qualified, for the benefit year. So employer reports to file with the VEC. Employers, we have updated the website. So there's fillable forms for employer to report separation of employment, report of wages paid, report of rehiring or furloughed or laid off workers. And then, probably the one people go to the most is report employees' refusal to return to work. So if an employer makes a job offer to someone that has been laid off and been filing for unemployment during the pandemic, we see this a lot with people, still not being comfortable to return to work. It's important to note that generally speaking, yes, you need to return to work. There's no legal responsibility that the employer to hold a job for you. And so that's a work refusal. It does create an issue, on the benefit, on the claim. Let's see what else. The forms will require detailed information that the VEC will use to determine actions claimed for the benefits. That's, the reporting form that's necessary. So the administrative hearing process, there are 80,000 pending. So we are really, we are trying to fast track this process as much as possible. During a separation issue, many employers, fail to return sometimes separation reports. Claimants are given the ability to return documentation, meaning, a certificate from the doctor saying that they were out. If a hearing officer is able to make a determination based on what has been returned, based on the separation report from the employer, then they are able to go ahead and make that. But many cases, they are not able to make a determination based on what has been provided, or really what has not been provided. And so in doing that, they do have to do a fact finding. They have to give the claimant, a chance to participate. They also have to give the employer a chance to participate. So just the manual process of calling customers, both employers and claimants, and having to do that for 80,000 people, it is very, very time consuming. And so that's where we see the largest part of the delay. People that that are waiting, that were either terminated or voluntarily quit, and they're waiting on a hearing. And so we are, the staff that we've hired, the additional staff, are assisting in working on that. So returning to work, like I mentioned earlier, individuals called back to work by an employer generally must return to work. If the individual refuses an offer to return to work, it creates an issue on the claim, whether that's self-reported or reported by the employer. VEC is required to follow the process outlined in state and federal law and through the guidance provided through the executive agencies. 11,000 of the admin hearings pending are related to job refusals. And, it's important about reemployment that we point out that there are currently 400,000 open jobs listed in the Virginia Workforce Connection, and the local offices can assist. Many are still closed to the public, but people, staff are reporting to those so they can assist people over the computer, over the PC, or over the phone. All right, I'll let Conrad talk about the unemployment insurance tax.
Okay, good afternoon. Well, as it sort of goes on the slide, the UI taxes have three different components because they are done based on the wage of $8,000 for the first $8,000 of wages for Virginia employees. Now, the base rate, because it's a benefit state, what happens is if your business has a person going on unemployment, the benefits that they are paid out are then recouped by higher taxes for the following 5 years until the money goes back into the fund. And if you don't have people who are taking unemployment, then your tax rates go down every year. The second component is going to be the pool charge, where, say, if a business goes out of business, so they won't be able to pay those benefits, it goes into pool, and it's socialized across all employers, and pool is meant to recoup those funds within 3 years, I believe. And the final component is going to be the fund builder tax. When our solvency for the UI Trust Fund goes under, it's 50% or under, or is it just under 50%? Just under 50%. The 0.02% kicks in until at the end of the fiscal year, we have surpassed 50% solvency. So because it's done at the end of June, it closes the fiscal year, we will typically start our tax calculations when we get all the data in, which comes in through July, August, and September, and usually September, October is when we are calculating the rates for the following year. Currently, this past year, we had 0 fund builder and 0 pool tax because the trust fund was over 85% solvent at a little over $1.5 billion. 100% solvency is based on several factors from wages paid, amount of benefits being paid for UI, revenue received, so that at last calculation, 100% solvency would have been a little over 1.8 billion, closer to 1.9. And 50% of solvency is spread around 825, 835 billion. So we've gone under 50% solvency a couple of weeks ago. So for next year, while we don't know what the pool tax will be or the base tax rate, we do know there will be a fund builder for 2021 and subsequent years. Which brings us into the next slide, forecasting those taxes. As I said, we normally do that towards the end of the year when we have more data coming in, because there will be revisions and wages reported and that such thing. But what's complicating the tax forecast for next year and the subsequent years is that there's some ambiguity on what kind of programs the current administration wants to take to try to reduce the burden on Virginia businesses for UI taxes. We get that from certain statements that the governor's made, but while we don't know what his intention is, we are sort of in a little bit of a limbo to see what can be done, because typically all of these charges for COVID will go towards the benefit ratio, and then the businesses that close, those will go to pool, and then will be socialized around the entire Commonwealth. You're going to see tax rates that are going to be similar to what we had after the Great Recession, because we ended up borrowing somewhere around $600 million to cover UI benefits because we went negative, which we anticipate our trust fund going negative sometime this quarter. We haven't narrowed it down to exactly when, because there's still lots of variables about how COVID does and if there will need to be any other sectors of the economy shut down to try to prevent its spread. Then the next slide. for the trust fund expenditures and balance. 2020 quarter one is going to be actual, while quarters 2, 3, and 4 are going to be projections. But as you can see, just looking initially, we were only paying out $39 million in, roughly a month for benefits. But when we moved on to the second quarter, we're at 1.3 billion, and it's getting higher. And part of that money is also going to be, not all of it is taken from the trust fund. PUA, pandemic unemployment assistance, that extra $600 a week, that's government finance, all of those do not come from the trust fund. So when we are discussing benefits and expenditures and how they affect tax rates, none of the PUA or government funding that's thrown in is included into those projections or those calculations. But we will most likely see in 2021 slightly lower tax rates than we'll be seeing in 2022, because we're only going to be capturing sort of the beginning part of the pandemic in this fiscal year, or the last fiscal year since today starts a new one, and we're going to see a lot more impact from now going forward, which is going to impact 2022 tax rates. But please let me know if you have any questions about this. I'll be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Conrad. B, I don't know if you want to jump in for the next set of slides, and then I think we're going to do questions at the end, if that's okay with the three of you, if you don't mind staying on.
No problem.
Sure. I mean, I think Jason can walk through these as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yes, either you or Jason, whoever feels best doing this.
Yeah, no problem. So VEC resources. So we're updating the VEC website for clearer instructions. We have made some changes to that really allows people two paths: one for someone that's unemployed or an employee versus someone that's an employer. We'll be reopening the comprehensive career work centers for in-person appointments. I know many of you have close relationships with the executive directors of the workforce development boards. They are taking the lead on reopening, setting the schedule. Currently, I mean, right now across the state, the Virginia Employment Commission, the state facilities that they only have for career work centers, the buildings they own is Covington, Fishersville, which is Stanton, and Lynchburg. That's it. So we are down to 3. So the workforce development boards really do, hold the majority of leases across the state. And so they're taking the lead on when the centers will reopen. And as you know, the centers have more staff than just the VEC staff in there. There are partners that work on training, Title I, and different things. And then we've also trying to go into the list of services offered at these locations. We have made that available. It's important. I mean, customers are understandably very upset about the delays and the waiting. But going to a local center, when we talk about having a hearing officer make a determination, on the claim, those hearing officers don't exist in the local offices. I mean, those decisions are made at the call centers and headquarters and the adjudication centers. And the adjudication centers are, in Newport News and Grundy, and then some in South Boston as well. So, a lot of people think that they can make an appointment. You can't deny me in person. And it really puts our staff, and all workforce center staff, in a situation of where that decision doesn't come there. The debit cards, people lose their debit cards. That is administered by a third party. So going to a local office and getting upset and asking for a debit card, that doesn't assist you either. But they are there to help you navigate the UI system and can help, with reemployment. Let's see, sharing VEC updates in the newsletters, sharing VEC social media updates. Our Twitter and Facebook, we are starting to put out there more graphics and information and frequently asked questions to try to assist customers. And then if you have any media request or anything, we do ask that you direct it to the media request at vec.virginia.gov. And then here is a screenshot from the updated VEC website that kind of allows, right here at the bottom where it says employers, that's important as the economy reopens. I need to report an employee, report paying wages, report a rehiring. That first one, report an employee who has refused to return to work. That does put an issue on their claim. It does have to be, and that's not to say that they may not have a legitimate reason, but it has to be with cause, and usually that requires some kind of documentation or some kind of reasoning. It can't be just a general fear of COVID. So that's for that section. The section on the right is I am a 1099 employee. That's where we're able to separate customers and give them an idea of what the difference is and the separation for people that are self-employed, the 1099, which is, the federal program that was created from the CARES Act, versus a traditional employee receives a W-2. Those is a way for us to separate and try to give people an understanding the difference. In the filing applications, there's two applications for PUA. The law requires that you file for state benefits first, but then you have to do the additional PUA application. And so that's the difference in a way for us to be able to explain that. Then the next slide is information materials for your members. If you haven't received those already, I think they'll be coming out at the end of the presentation. We'll email those out, but there's different things that we're trying to get the word about what the true eligibility is. Just because we're in a health crisis and a pandemic does not mean everyone is eligible for unemployment. Another thing too is that people get that first letter, that first monetary determination that explains what the benefits are allowed, and they think that means that's an automatic qualification. That's just one part of a three-part qualification. You've got to have the separation, meaning you were separated from employment at no fault of your own, or you have just cause for quitting. And then the weekly certification. You have to claim every single week. And so, working through that with 500,000 people, is just a tremendous job. Go to the next. And then the contact information, local office, the local WIB directors can also direct you to VEC staff to file for UI. The 866 number, that is for PUA as well. We have a separate call center. I know the call centers, the reputation of delays is not good, but we are adding capacity to it. So it is still a way to file. The preferred method to file an initial claim for unemployment insurance is online. There's no question about that, is to do it online. And then for contacts, collateral materials, newsletters, is also assisting us.
I think that covers our presentation, but if you want to direct your questions, Jeremy, or have your team read the questions, Jason and Conrad can answer those for you.
Thank you, Bea, and thank you, Jason and Conrad, for a fantastic presentation. As Bea mentioned, at this time, we will entertain questions from the meeting participants. If you haven't already, please type your questions in the chat that should be on the right of your screen, and you can access that by clicking the chat button at the bottom. And those of you who are on phone calls, dialing in on a phone number, you can email Katie Boyle at kboyle@vaco.org with any questions or comments. I know some of you expressed interest in asking questions, so we are getting a few, but please feel free to type some in the chat. And this question is from Loudoun County Supervisor Mike Turner. My question is pretty complex. Can I unmute and explain it? Yeah, Mike, if you don't mind, you can go ahead and do that.
Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. About a week ago, back 2 weeks ago, I was talking with Senator Jennifer Boysko's staff. We came up with an idea. Let me tell you what's going on very briefly. Secretary Rand, our Loudoun County Chair Phyllis Randall sent a letter to Secretary Ball last week. We haven't gotten a reply yet. We have a big tip-based income pool, employee pool here in Loudoun County, and they're being killed by the phased reentry. And the system was not designed to handle a phased reentry. And what's happening is the employers, we have a local restaurant here, are inviting their entire employee staff back at a vastly reduced schedule. If you're a tip-based employee, that means if you make $379 in a week, you lose all of your base unemployment plus the $600 supplemental, and you must take the offer of reemployment. We have suggested and tested with a number of employers, if they brought them back to work and offered them the job, but instead split their entire workforce into a gold team and a silver team, split it in half, and then brought them back on alternating weeks. So half of the workforce would work almost a full schedule 1 week, then they would file for unemployment the week that they did not work. The unemployment load on the state would still be reduced in half from what it is right now. So that's moving forward in a phased way. Employers would be able to schedule much easier because they would know they have their teams divided in half. And the employees would be greatly incentivized to return back to work because now they're getting either roughly a full paycheck on their on week and full unemployment on their off week. We think that is a win all the way around. And the employers are saying, listen, we would do this if we just had something in writing from the secretary's office or from the VEC that said, yes, this is kosher, this is legal, this is not taming the system. You can do it this way. Then we could advertise it to all of our local businesses to say, if you schedule on an A-team-B team, half work each other week, you will help your employees, and we will still be able to phase in the reemployment. All we need is something in writing that says that's legal and kosher. Can you guys give some guidance on that it's legal? And second, if we can get some kind of a written response, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
I mean, under the circumstances, since you've written the secretary's office, I mean, I will wait, for the commissioner and the secretary to respond. But I mean, employers have layoffs, and I don't see it gaming. My personal opinion is that people schedule, layoffs that do work the best. I mean, I don't see. Anyway, I'll let the secretary's office and the commissioner answer.
Okay, thank you. We do have thank you, Mike, and Jason. We do have a question from Tiani Ivy. She writes, what can be done to those who've received a monetary determination, meet separation criteria, and the system won't let them file their weekly claim?
It means that they have an issue on the claim that is unresolved. So they need to get in contact with the call center to try to figure out what the issue is to get that removed.
Okay, thank you. We do have another question that came in, and this is regarding the potential increases in to unemployment insurance tax paid by employers. And just a little bit more clarification has been asked for what is the timeline and process for that decision to be made and implemented. And I know you mentioned in the call that we might see increases in employer tax rates similar to the time around the Great Recession going forward, and that would likely have a negative fiscal impact to local governments as well as all employers in the Commonwealth. So in terms of when we'll have more information about when that might be baked in and what those rates might be, I guess Conrad, if you're able to, Conrad or Jason, if you're able to provide a little bit more context on that, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Well, as I said, we typically start doing the calculation in October, September, October, so that by the beginning of November, we will be in the final phases to make sure we have all of the taxes done, because we need to get those printed and emailed to businesses by December. So because the tax rates will then take effect in January. But this year, as I said, we do know, the one thing we do know for sure that next year we'll have is going to be the fund builder, because we went below 50% solvency in this current, or that last current fiscal year. But because the trust fund has not gone to zero, it still had like 800 million at the end of the fiscal year, then we won't have as steep tax or as we're going to probably have in 2022. 2021 is most likely going to be a smaller rate, but businesses should be getting their tax notices in December.
Great. Thank you so much for that response. I'll just mention that in chat, Nancy VACo mentions to everyone that the local offices supporting Loudoun County have been incredibly responsive and assistive in working individual cases. Tiani, this might be an opportunity for you. So thank you for that comment, Nancy. We do have one or two more questions coming in, and someone wrote that they recently saw in the news that the VEC headquarters office in Richmond will temporarily close after a number of employees tested positive with COVID-19. And our thoughts and prayers are with you all and your staff, that you're trying to do all this right now, and you're also struggling with a lot of the challenges that our local governments are to protect their staff and their employees. And I guess just the follow-up question is, since there is so much to be done, is this expected to impact your operations and processing of any unresolved claims? Just if you could elaborate a little bit on that, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so I mean, still a majority, just like I mentioned earlier about, going to the local office and trying to have a issue adjudicated or something like that. I mean, a bulk load of work is handled in South Boston, Virginia at a call center. It's handled in Grundy at a call center. And then we have staff in Newport News that also work in the Hampton Roads area. Then we have the offices across the state where staff are also working claims and working that. So at headquarters, I mean, we do have some IT staff, but they have not been affected. They are able to telecommute and have been telecommuting, processing stuff. So, other than like what other staff and employees and employers that are working during this time are going through with, morale and safety and those issues. I mean, otherwise, it will have minimal impact. The office is open back today, but it's limited. Folks aren't being encouraged to come in for obvious reasons. I mean, we're being encouraged to telecommute. I'm working today from home. But otherwise, I mean, it very, very minimal impact for us telecommuting and for getting the process done with the call centers. The contracted call centers are here in Richmond and in Hampton Roads. That is not a part of headquarters. That's separate as well. So like with anybody, we have finance, we have IT, we have HR, administration is in central office. Was there a second part to that, or was that it?
That was it. Thank you so much for covering that. And I'm just checking. We don't have any additional questions coming in for email, but it is nice to know that you do have offices across the Commonwealth and that the work will continue. So I thank you very much for that. And we'll wrap things up. I will say just a very warm thank you to all of our presenters, Jason, Conrad, and Bea, for helping set this up. VACo will continue to provide additional information on these topics as it becomes available, and we'll make the slides available as well. But if you have any additional questions or concerns, just encourage you to follow the advice of Jason and Conrad to feel free to reach out to the contact information they provided, or as always, feel free to contact VACo staff directly. And with that, I will just say thank you one last time, Jason, Conrad, and Bea. You all are great, and really appreciate you working with us on this.
Yeah, no
You're
problem. And again, if you have questions, just forward them to Jeremy. When we, it's difficult, for like our customer service inbox, our constituent inbox, different things. So, but Jeremy can get in touch with us if you have a specific question. It's tough to attach one email address that goes out across the state and then can be forwarded to everyone unlimited, to get responses on that. So, but, we are available anytime to answer questions.
Great. Well, thank you. I did put my email in the chat, and my contact information is available on the VACo site. But again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to members of our board, our county administrators, and their staff, members of the community who tuned in today. We wish you all a very good day. Please stay safe out there, and wish everyone a happy 4th of July.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you.
And with that, we will wrap the meeting, and we'll have information posted. So thank you again, everyone.